Good evening. This is Guion Foreman, President of the Chicago Police Board, and I am calling the board's January 19th public meeting to order. To protect the public's health in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is taking place remotely. Pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, I have determined that holding this meeting in person is not practical or prudent. The city of Chicago remains subject to the governor's disaster proclamation due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the disease continues to be a threat, especially to the unvaccinated and people with certain health conditions. We are therefore having this meeting remotely this month. This meeting is open to the public via video and audio conference and is being carried live by CAN TV. Members of the public are on mute in order to reduce background noise and disruptions. We also have a court reporter making a transcript of this meeting. In addition to the Chicago Police Board members, we have several city officials here with us this evening. I will begin by taking attendance so it is clear who is participating in this meeting. Please say here after I read your name. Police Board Vice President Paula Wolf.
Here.
Board Member Stephen Block.
Here.
Board Member Mariley Cusack.
Here.
Board Member Nanette Doorley.
Here.
Board Member Michael Eady.
Here.
And Board Member Jorge Montez.
Here.
Superintendent of Police David Brown.
Here.
COPA Chief Administrator Andrea Kirsten.
Here.
Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety Tabara Richardson.
Here.
Deputy Chief of CPD's Bureau of Internal Affairs Tracy Walker.
Here.
First Deputy Eric Carter. Chief of Bureau of Patrol Brian McDermott.
Here.
Chief of Bureau of Detectives Brendan Denahan.
Here.
Chief of CPD's Office of Constitutional Policing and Reform Angel Novales. Executive Director of CPD's Office of Constitutional Policing and Reform Tina Scahill.
Here.
General Counsel to the Superintendent Dana O'Malley.
Here.
And Executive Director of the Police Board Max Caproni.
Here.
Thank you all and Happy New Year's. Good to see everyone. We will now proceed to the items on the meeting agenda. We will have time at the end of the meeting for public comments. Once again, members of the public are currently on mute in order to reduce background noise and disruptions. When we get to the public comment portion of the meeting, we will unmute each speaker. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the board's regular public meeting held on December 15th, 2022?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
I will now call on members of the board for their votes. Wolf.
Aye.
Block.
Aye.
Cusack.
Aye.
Doorley.
Aye.
Eady.
Aye.
Montez.
Aye.
And I vote in favor of the motion. The motion passes. Listed on our website for our regular public meetings, it's posted on our website, chicago.gov/police board. As in past years, the board will meet on the third Thursday of the month, and the meetings will begin at 7:30 p.m. Our next regular public meeting will be held Thursday, February 16th at 7:30. Whether this will be an in-person meeting or remote will be determined closer to the meeting date. The police board meets in executive session monthly to consider personnel matters and litigation. Those discussions are closed to the public as authorized by sections 2C1, 3, 4, and 11 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act. A summary of items discussed in the executive session is posted in the minutes of the meetings on our website. Is there a motion to close the future executive sessions as authorized by these sections of the Open Meetings Act?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
I will now call on members of the board for their votes. Wolf.
Aye.
Block.
Aye.
Cusack.
Aye.
Doorley.
Aye.
Eady.
Aye.
Montez.
Aye.
And I vote in favor of the motion. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is our police disciplinary cases. The police board is authorized by the Open Meetings Act has considered in a closed meeting one police disciplinary case. We will now take final action. Regarding case number 22 PB 3010, the superintendent filed charges against Sergeant Raul Alvarez, recommending that he be discharged from the Chicago Police Department for engaging in sexual misconduct. The superintendent subsequently moved to withdraw these charges without prejudice because Raul Alvarez resigned from the Chicago Police Department. Is there a motion to grant the superintendent's motion?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
I'll call on members of the board for their votes. Wolf,
Aye.
Block,
Aye.
Cusack,
Aye.
Doorley,
Aye.
Edie,
Aye.
Montez,
Aye.
and I vote in favor of the motion. Voting in favor are board members Block, Cusack, Doorley, Edie, Montez, and myself. The motion passes by a vote of 7-0.
I'm not sure you had Wolf, but I was voting aye.
Oh, I apologize. And
It's
Wolf,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next, the police board is authorized by the Open Meeting Act has considered in closed meeting one appeal from an applicant for a Chicago police officer position who has been removed from the eligibility list due to the results of a background examination. The board will now take final action on this appeal. Regarding appeal number 22AA05, is there a motion to adopt the appeals officer's findings and conclusions and recommendation and to affirm the decision to disqualify the applicant?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
I will now call on members of the board for their votes. Wolf,
Aye.
Block,
Aye.
Cusack,
Aye.
Doorley,
Aye.
Edie,
Aye.
Montez,
Aye.
and I vote in favor of the motion. Voting in favor are board members Wolf, Block, Cusack, Doorley, Edie, Montez, and myself. The motion passes by a vote of 7-0. The written decision of this appeal will be entered as of today's date, sent to the parties, and posted on the board's website within 5 days. Max, don't we have some individual cases, disagreement cases?
Yes, we do have 3 announcements of rulings in disagreement cases, and I believe Vice President Wolf and board members Block and Doorley will be making those announcements.
Thank you. Excuse me. I was randomly selected from the police board's membership to consider one matter on which the chief administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the superintendent of police did not agree regarding the discipline of a police officer. In request for review number 22-25, the chief administrator recommended that field training officer Mark Johnson be suspended for 366 days for using excessive force on a student while off duty and working a second job as a Chicago Public Schools security officer. The superintendent agreed with the allegations of misconduct and that they be sustained, but proposed a 365-day suspension. After considering this matter, it's my opinion that the superintendent did not meet the burden of overcoming the chief administrator's recommendation for discipline. A copy of the written opinion will be posted on the police board's website.
Thank you.
I was randomly selected from the police board's membership to consider one matter on which the chief administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the superintendent of police did not agree regarding the discipline of 2 police officers. In request for review numbers 22-26 and 27, the chief administrator recommended that officers Cody Maloney and Tito Jimenez each be suspended for 10 days for failing to activate his body-worn camera during law enforcement activity, and in the case of Officer Maloney, failing to submit a tactical response report. The superintendent agreed that the allegations of misconduct be sustained, but proposed a one-day suspension of each officer. After considering this matter, and is set forth more fully in the written opinion, there is nothing in the record before me to support the determination that either the superintendent's recommendation or COPA's recommendation regarding discipline is more or less reasonable than the other. Therefore, I find that the superintendent did not meet the burden of overcoming the chief administrator's recommendations for discipline. A copy of the written opinion will be posted on the board's website.
Thank you. We will now have a report from Max
No.
Capone. Oh, I'm sorry. Nanette, I have my apologies.
Oh, no problem. It is my opinion that based on a thorough review of the request for review material, the superintendent met the burden of overcoming the chief administrator's recommendation for discipline. Regarding Officer Lane, based on the totality of the circumstances, including that Officer Lane was pursuing a man with a gun and was working with Sergeant Stevens, who was not his regular partner, I am persuaded that the allegation that Officer Lane failed to make the required notification to OEMC should not be sustained, and therefore a one-day reduction in the suspension from 366 to 365 days is appropriate. Regarding Lieutenant Ortega, I believe that a 30-day suspension without pay is a significant level of discipline that will communicate to Lieutenant Ortega and CPD supervisors the importance of reporting an officer's misconduct to COPA. Therefore, pursuant to Section 2-78 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, the superintendent's proposed discipline of Police Officer Paul Lane, star number 15431, and Lieutenant Elvis Ortega, star number 457, shall be implemented. Nanette Dorley.
Thank you. Now we will have a report on police board's compliance with the consent decree.
Thank you, President Foreman. As many of you know, in early 2019, the U.S. District Court approved a consent decree on policing in Chicago. The goals of the consent decree include ensuring lawful and constitutional policing, building trust between police officers and the communities they serve, promoting community and officer safety, and providing CPD members with the resources and support they need. The police board is committed to supporting the goals of the consent decree and has made significant progress in implementing reforms in the areas of police accountability and transparency. Every 6 months, the independent monitor of the consent decree assesses the city's compliance with the decree. I'm pleased to report that the police board has achieved a level of compliance with 100% of the paragraphs it is responsible for implementing. The independent monitor released its 6th semi-annual report on December 15th of last year. Of the 14 paragraphs the police board is responsible for implementing, the monitor found the board to be in full compliance with the requirements of 10 paragraphs, in secondary compliance with 1 paragraph, and in preliminary compliance with 3 paragraphs. Preliminary compliance means that the board has established the framework and resources to achieve the reform. Secondary compliance means the board has effectively communicated the reform to relevant personnel, and full compliance means the board has successfully implemented the reform in practice. So once again, right now the board is in full compliance with 10 paragraphs, in secondary compliance with 1 paragraph, and in preliminary compliance with 3 paragraphs. So now to provide a little bit more information on these 14 paragraphs. The board has achieved full compliance with the requirements of the paragraphs on due process and police disciplinary hearings that are overseen by a hearing officer. We made several changes to our rules of procedure and enacted other reforms to improve the disciplinary process and to report data on these cases. The board has also achieved full compliance in the areas of public meetings. primarily by ensuring responsiveness to the community's issues of concern that are raised at these meetings. The board also has regular meetings with the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety to discuss policy issues and possible solutions. And the board achieved full compliance in this area as well, along with COPA and the Inspector General. The one area where the board needs to complete additional work is in training. The board has developed and continues to implement a curriculum for training board members and hearing officers on a variety of topics, including police use of force, the Fourth Amendment, procedural justice, and community outreach. This year, the board plans to complete all required training and achieve full compliance with the 3 paragraphs in this area. We have a section of our website devoted to the consent decree, and members of the public and everyone here can find more detailed information on the requirements of the consent decree and the progress the board has made in meeting them. And our website is chicago.gov/police board. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to report on the board's progress in this area, and I'm happy to respond to any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for Max? Right, we're hearing no questions. Thank you, Max. Superintendent, if you would like to provide your report.
Sorry, I was on mute.
All right.
I'd like to recap 2022's crime and then update you on the first 19 days of 2023's crime, as well as update you on officer wellness and recruitment and retention. So starting with the recap of 2022, we ended the year with a 20% reduction in shootings, a 13% reduction in homicides, a 10% reduction in carjackings, as well as a really significant increase in the number of illegal guns recovered in the city of Chicago, over 12,000 again for the second consecutive year. In addition, our officers engaged the community in ways that were consistent with the consent decree. We ended our 6-month report with a 78% compliance. And I just want to remind the police board, just 2.5 years ago, when we started, when I started here, we were at 11% compliance. So we made up significant ground, catching up to 78% compliance with the consent decree. A lot more work to do. As it relates to officer wellness, we are now at 17 newly hired licensed clinicians. Our goal is to have 22. We have a couple of more being processed now. So we hope to get to the full complement of 22 licensed clinicians, one for each of our police districts. In addition, we recently hired a director of wellness. That has been one of our goals for the last 6 months. We've been interviewing and finally got someone on board. We'd love to schedule maybe a meeting with the new director of wellness for one of the police board meetings so we can walk through his credentials, resume, and you guys can all ask him questions. In addition, we've been upgrading our police district gyms and fitness equipment, as well as for each of the districts, adding a quiet room in the districts where officers can decompress during or after their shifts. The really exciting news is we've turned a corner on hiring new officers. At the end of 22, we hired 956 new Chicago police officers. That's the most we've hired since 2017, 2018. The group of 956 officers are 70% people of color and 30% women. We have much more work to do. We're obviously got a very aggressive schedule of visiting colleges, universities in and around Chicago and outside the city, and as well as historically Black colleges and universities, where a lot of Chicago kids go to college. And so we're continuing to be aggressive there. So far this year, 2023, we continue to have momentum around violent crime reduction. Shootings are down 8% so far this year, and homicides are down 15% so far in 2023. So we ended 2022 with a 20% reduction in shootings. So far, the first 19 days of 2023, shootings are down 8%. We ended 2022 with a 13% reduction in homicides. So far, for the first 19 days of 2023, homicides are down 15%. So our officers are hard at work. We're engaging the community. We're gaining trust, but our work is never done. There's so much to do. And I just want to close with a couple of the challenges to make you aware of. Auto thefts and robberies, and increasingly more juveniles, more young people as the offender. Last year, for most of the year, our carjacking offenders were about half juvenile, about 53% of the offenders in carjackings were juveniles. So far this year, that number has increased to about 70% juvenile carjacking offenders. And I want to flag a couple of models of cars that's being stolen. The Kia and Hyundai models are the number 1 and 2 cars being stolen in Chicago and around the country because of a steering column flaw that allows your charging USB to turn the ignition like it were the key. Kia Hyundai hadn't recalled these models to correct that flaw. They're working on it. We're engaged with them. In the interim, we're really encouraging people who own the Kia and Hyundai models to invest in the steering block, the old club. Many of you may remember the old club across your steering. That really works at preventing someone from stealing your car once they break the steering column and turn the USB port. Unfortunately, this is as a result, this wave of these stolen Kia and Hyundais is a result of a TikTok video on how to steal a Kia Hyundai by using the USB port. So this advent of stealing these cars really started last summer, and it's really escalated since. So we are doing a lot of community engagement. We're actually walking block by block, knocking on doors, giving crime prevention tips, soliciting crime intelligence from the community. It's really gone well. We've done that for a few weeks so far this month, and we'll continue engaging the community, particularly where these crime patterns are occurring, so people can be aware and we can solicit information from the community and build trust. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, President Guillen.
Thank you, Superintendent. Some great updates. Next up, Chief Administrator Kirsten.
Thank you, President Foreman. Appreciate the opportunity to be before this board this evening. So I will start off just by giving sort of our statistical recap of the events of December. So last month, COPA received 403 complaints and notifications. Of those, 96 cases or complaints were under COPA's jurisdiction and retained by our agency. We saw the highest complaint type, again, being Fourth Amendment improper search or seizure at about 26% of those cases. We also received 9 officer-involved shooting notifications in the month of December, which is a significantly high number of officer-involved shootings. It was particularly difficult. 2 of them occurred on Christmas Eve, actually, in fact, and I just want to mention that was a time where we had incredibly cold and frigid temperatures, and our staff is working outside alongside of CPD, which requires a lot of coordination and cooperation, and no one wants to work on the holidays, certainly, and it's even more difficult to do so in frigid temperatures. So just appreciate the work of our staff at COPA as well as our CPD partners, particularly on the incident response team, to get through those joint investigations and scenes as quickly as we can. Also, of the 71 cases that we closed this month, 25% of them included sustained allegations. So in 3/4 of the cases and investigations that we concluded this month, officers' conduct was either exonerated, unfounded, or there was not sufficient evidence to sustain any allegation of misconduct. I think it's important to point out and contextualize that number. As you hear a lot and as we talk about matters before this board, the things that typically rise to the surface are the most serious allegations of egregious misconduct that the police board hears in full evidentiary hearings, or the disagreements that occur on other levels of discipline recommendations between myself and the superintendent of the police department. But by and large, what doesn't get reported are cases which are concluded without sustained allegations. And sometimes I think the public misses the fuller picture of the kind of conduct that we review and how our investigations come down in many of these instances. So I think that's important to remember. Additionally, in the month of December, despite it being the holiday season, we were out and about in the community for 7 events of community engagement. I'll just highlight 2 that were particularly important to me. One was, and I think I mentioned this at the December's police board hearing, being able to report out before the Community Commission on Public Safety and Accountability regarding COPA's goals for 2023. All of the public safety entities under that commission's purview, so COPA, the police board, and the police department are all tasked with developing goals each year, and this is the first year of that endeavor. So we're excited as an agency to put forth, our plan, our roadmap for how to sort of meet expectations in those goals and in the development of those goals, and work alongside the commission and the community members that serve on that commission in order to try and achieve those goals in 2023. Another community engagement event that I wanted to highlight was my privilege of being able to serve as a civic leader who got to judge the Mikvah Challenge soapbox competition. It's a public speaking event, took place at Jones Prep CPS High School. And it was students from as young as 7th grade, 13, 14 years old, all the way up through high school, speaking on subjects of particular social or political importance for them. We heard all topics, everything from gender equality to public safety, police accountability, domestic violence, cultural appropriation, and they each gave prepared speeches of 3 to 4 minutes in length. And it was a powerful reminder to me of the weight of words, and that even the youngest among us have are impacted by the events that take place in our world. And it is a privilege for me as the chief administrator of COPA to have a soapbox from which to speak on and to try to paint the picture of what police accountability from our lens at COPA looks like here in Chicago. And that's a privilege that I don't take lightly. But sometimes we need to be reminded of that, even by young people in and around us in our city. So that was a tremendous opportunity for me, and I was happy to participate. Lastly, we had one video release in the month of December, and so that was our agency's fulfillment of the City of Chicago's video release policy. That, of course, means that we publish and make transparent videos of officer-involved shootings and certain other incidents in compliance with that policy. So one of those video publications went up in the month of December. And then lastly, I'll just continue to kind of lift up my staff. They worked really hard as we rounded out the year to close all of our remaining cases that were in the CLEAR case management system. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, in early 2019, both the Bureau of Internal Affairs at CPD and COPA entered into sort of a new case management platform that we have to jointly use that was replacing a legacy system called the CLEAR system. And obviously CLEAR has other functions for the police department, which remain fully functional. But as far as the misconduct investigation module, that is sunsetting, and COPA worked steadily to make sure that all of those cases were closed before the migration of that information was even necessary over to CMS. And that really took a coordinated effort from investigations, our legal staff, our quality management folks, and everyone on the senior leadership team that's tasked with reviewing and finalizing those reports. So just want to say a big thank you to our staff at COPA for staying the course and setting a goal and meeting it. It's exciting to see, and I hope that it portends progress to come for us in this new year. So thank you.
But I'm not sure that that most can understand the relevance of that, but from a police board perspective, man, really sincere thank you for that. That's really comforting to hear, and you know, from past years we understand some of those challenges, some of those legacy systems and legacy cases. So thank you for your diligent effort. Next on the agenda is the board standard operating procedures and policies. We thought it was important to let the public and all stakeholders know that we publish on our website all policies that the board adopts at its public meetings, as well as procedures regarding the operations of the board and its staff. These are all collected in a document titled Police Board Standard Operating Procedures and Policies, which is available on our homepage at chicago.gov/policeboard. Finally, I will call upon members of the public who signed up in advance to speak to ensure that we have time to hear from all speakers. We are setting a 2-minute time limit on comments. Speakers, when we call your name, you can press *6 to unmute yourself. Our first speaker from the Youth Council, Deji Allen. Deji, are you here? Okay, our second speaker, Anthony Bryant.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Anthony David Bryan. Thank you all for allowing us to participate in the meeting. I am a resident of Woodlawn, as well as a resident of the 3rd District. I'm running for the local police district council. I'm speaking on the police district council because I think this can be a crucial resource to the community, as well as a resource for the Commission on Public Safety and Accountability, as well as with COPA and the police board. I think this police district council can help with increasing transparency to crime data, as well as facts about hiring, demographics, as well as valuable information on strategies and practices. This district council can definitely expand what holding police accountable looks like, especially for causing harm, as well as associating with hate groups and perpetrating violence. I think there needs to be potential of decreasing militarizing practices, as well as potentially holding officers accountable as with suspending their paid administrative leave if they're under investigation. And then listening to the residents' input on alternatives to policing in our communities. So expanding mental health first aid responders, as well as inputting and expanding restorative justice and violence prevention programs. And so I just wanted to just speak on that right quick. I would appreciate you all, as well as just continue to get data and information, and as well as any presentations and slides that you all may have on your website. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Rabbi Michael Ben Yosef.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Greetings to the Chicago Police Board. My name is Rabbi Michael Ben Yosef, human rights activist here in Chicago. I'm here to address the Chicago Police Board on behalf of the Toledo family and a loved one, Adam Toledo, who was murdered by Chicago police officer Eric Stillman. On October 20th, 2022, this board made a recommendation to fire Eric Stillman for his involvement in the murder of Adam Toledo. There was a recommendation to proceed with the evidentiary hearing. As of today, approximately 50 days later, since that meeting, no hearing has been scheduled for the review. In fact, Eric Stillman is still actively carrying out police duties, receiving a pension, and enjoying his life to the fullest while the Toledo family agrees. We ask for empathy on behalf of this board to consider if you were in the shoes of this family patiently waiting for every day a struggle knowing your loved one was murdered by a killer cop, Eric Stillman. The day Adam was murdered, Eric Stillman was the prosecutor, the judge, and the jury. He demonstrated no remorse. Had Adam been white, we would not be sitting here today. It's not fair to the Toledo family and they deserve justice. And now the second year of anniversary of Adam Toledo's death is approaching on March 29, 2023. We are asking that this board fulfills its ultimate duty to hold this meeting as soon as possible. The mother deserves to confront her son's killer. The mother deserves accountability for what's happened to Adam Toledo. The mother deserves to see this board act on its recommendation to ensure this nightmare does not happen to another family. Eric Stillman murdered Adam in cold blood. Eric Stillman was the hunter and Adam was the hunted. These are the facts, and we're asking that this board moves expeditiously to hold this meeting to move forward. As I close, may this family be comforted during their time and difficult days of their bereavement, and may soon come swiftly justice. This is my hope, and this is my prayer. Shalom Aleichem. God bless. Amen.
All right, thank you, Rabbi. I think it's important that we make sure that we're sharing factual information. So we did not make a recommendation. We recommended that there should be a hearing first.
Okay.
Second, Max, can you give us an update in terms of where we are in terms of the hearing moving forward? I can tell you, I know that he's been stripped of his police powers. So he's not still carrying out his duties as a police officer. Max, where are we in terms of status on the hearing?
So as of right now, charges have not been filed with the police board against Officer Stillman. So the board has not yet received those charges and has not yet taken jurisdiction of the case. So it's still in a state where it's not been filed with the board, and the board has not been able to move forward with the case because it hasn't been filed.
Chief.
Thank you, President. I just wanted to add, and so it's clear for the public and for this particular speaker, that it's the Department of Law that's responsible for filing those charges. So the police board, CPD, COPA, none of us have any control over when the charges actually get filed before the police board. That rests within the purview of the Department of Law.
So as soon as we have an opportunity when it's filed, we will have the ability to set that hearing date. So we definitely pay attention to our website. We'll keep that updated as soon as we get the information. I'm sure it'll be in the newspaper before it'll be on our website.
Next President Foreman, I can just comment on the process once the charges are filed. So once the charges are filed, they will be personally served on the accused officer, and then we will post them on the board's website so that they're available to the public. And then also on the website, we keep up-to-date information on the status of the case and when the status hearings and ultimately the evidentiary hearing, which are open to the public, will be scheduled. So all of that information will be available on our website once charges are filed.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Krista Noel.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Sorry. Okay, in regards to what I have to say today, we're still, really upset over the presentation. We really don't know how CPD is supposed to respond to CCL holders. We have reviewed all the statutes and all the laws, and Elijah didn't do anything wrong. And so we really just don't know why he was arrested, and we just have a problem with arbitrary arrest. This was an arbitrary arrest. We're reviewing video now. And we really would like, and Superintendent, if you're still around, we really would like to know, in the best case scenario, what is supposed to happen? How are the Chicago police supposed to respond to someone who is legally carrying their weapon in their car? We do not want to have more Elijahs where people are not only legal weapon owners, but they are being arrested, shackled, and having their weapons destroyed. And I really have a problem with knowing that the system, the judges, are allowing this to happen as well. So Superintendent, I really want to get with you, maybe Dean, you, and figure out how we're going to teach cops how to approach CCL and teach our community of CCL holders what the expectations are of cops.
Thank you. You know, so Krista, this one it's a touchy subject because of litigation, right? So giving an answer specifically to your comment right now, because I can't be prejudiced, you know, about this specific case as it relates to police board. I didn't ask very specific questions about this incident, but I have followed up with CPD. I have followed up with COPA. I have followed up with the training department. We, the police board, even had some training on some Fourth Amendment issues, right? And so, you know, in fairness, right, one of the things that I've kind of gained from my time in being on the police board, that it's important that we think about all of the perspectives, and each situation is very different. And how the police react to a person, how a person reacts to how the police are acting, all of those things play a role in it. And so I do think it's important. CCL holders, they get training in a certain way, what they're supposed to do. Police get training in a way that they're supposed to act when a person tells them that they're a concealed carry holder. So there are a lot of nuances that go into this situation. It's going to be tough to talk about this one specifically because of the litigation, you know, but I do think it is important for all of us to kind of understand, the public to understand what happens in a police encounter. And I think it's important for police to understand how you need to approach us, members of the public, right? And this is some of the work that I think the police is trying to do. I know COPA with the COPA Academy, this is some of the kind of conversations they're having, you know, and next month we'll talk about some of this. We'll hear a presentation. So I understand your point. And I think it's some ongoing dialogue that we all need to have with each other. In an effort for everyone to be safe. I know that might not be very comforting specifically what I'm saying to you, but if we think about this from the perspective of us trying to make a better system, you know, I think that we'll be able to learn from each other and try to set up some ways so that, you know, we won't have incidents like this again. Our next speaker, Lolita Hendricks. Lolita Hendricks. Our last and final.
Hello.
Yes, hello. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for taking my call. My name is Lolita Hendricks, and I am the aunt of Treasure Hendricks, who was found dead on August 19th, 2021 in the RV of CPD officer Charlie Bell, who is now he left the force. He resigned on August 26th, which was 5 days after she was found dead in his RV. She was found also with cocaine, fentanyl, methamphetamines, ecstasy, a whole host of drugs that were in her system. He testified at the scene that he tried to give her CPR, and that he was present during her time at his residence. My niece was an ex-offender. And so my question to you is around your standard operating procedures that you just applauded the team about. And the immediate supervisor, who was his immediate supervisor? And did his immediate supervisor, within the 5 days that he was still there on scene, meaning still on the police force, did they actually do any type of investigation to find out why he was with someone who had the ex-felon status? And to my knowledge, you're not supposed to be, officers are not supposed to be in the company or in association with that type of person. So I want to know about that. Can somebody explain to me who would I talk to, either his supervisor or the superintendent, to give me a rundown on what the expectations are when an officer is found to have had an incident such as this, someone found dead in their home? And then also I want to know if there's anything that this board can tell me that I should be looking at, or my family should be looking at, as it relates to this former officer. We're holding him accountable, but we're really now holding the supervisory staff more accountable, because from the point that she was found, within that 5 to 6 days, we don't have any evidence that there was anything done other than the protection of the union to cover him. Was there any detailed investigation done by any of the higher ups that he reported to, other than the union?
Okay. Would that be you, Chief, or would that be Superintendent?
I am familiar with this case, and first of all, I just want to express my sympathy to your family for your loss. I do know a little bit factually about the case because we received notification of it from the police department, and at COPA we had to evaluate whether we had any jurisdiction over the case, and there was no evidence to indicate that we had any jurisdiction over this matter. So no clear indication of the things that would trigger a COPA investigation, like excessive force or domestic violence, that we could prove or establish within the parameters of what we were able to review. With respect to that, some of the other things that you're highlighting, ma'am, as far as a potential failure to act according to directives at the supervisory level, that would typically fall within the purview of the Bureau of Internal Affairs, a failure to perform any sort of police service. But I would yield to anyone from the department that wants to speak on this case.
I'll just state that this was a death investigation, and there are interviews, regardless of whether this officer resigns during the investigation. The medical examiner determines cause of death, and people on the scene are interviewed, evidence is collected. I don't know the details of that death investigation at this time. But we should be able to follow up with through the board with that, and share what we can.
Okay, so Max will get your information, and we'll try to ensure that we can coordinate to get you some information on this one. As far as,
I'm sorry for your loss, ma'am.
Yes,
thank you, sir.
Sorry for your loss. As far as the police board is concerned, you heard a case tonight where the superintendent moved to file charges against an officer. That officer resigned. So therefore, the superintendent withdrew the charges because he can't have any discipline against someone who doesn't work there anymore. So same for we, the board, we don't have the ability to have a hearing on someone. So that's kind of where our powers end at that point, when that person is no longer employed. But we'll work with the superintendent, we'll work with CPD to try to get you some of the answers to the questions that you have.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Our final speaker, Mr. Robert Moore. Mr. Moore, if you can unmute one of your phones. Mr. Moore. I'm not sure that Mr. Moore has joined us today. At this time, I believe all members of the public who signed up to speak have been called. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Be safe.